is listed as the host. Oh, she's got it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh,
Okay.
great. Okay, good.
Thanks.
So let's get started. Actually, we do have a mystery guest here. So perhaps we should have our mystery guest step in. I believe her name is Barbara Mystery, according to the chat list. We're very grateful that Barbara Oakley has been able to join us, and perhaps could Barbara say a few words? She'll be our keynote speaker at CIT.
Oh, I'm Barb here, and I'm just so excited about the conference. It's going to be fabulous. The organization is really the best I've ever seen, and I think we're going to have a lot of very interesting and exciting information to share. So it's a privilege for me to be a part of it.
We're thrilled.
Can I add something in there? For those of you who have not had a chance to look at the program, Barbara is not only attending the conference and delivering the keynote, but she's also going to be doing a workshop, which I believe might already be filled, but you can check. That will be the same day as the keynote. And then she is also going to do a book signing, which we requested because there's just so many great assets to share. So we're hoping that, Barbara, maybe you want to comment on the workshop briefly?
The workshop, I've done this in a variety of places, and people really love it because what we'll do is we're going to take Camtasia, and we will make it so that, there we go, you can actually see me now. So we're going to use Camtasia. We'll bring it up. People will load it on their computer, their laptop. It's bring your own laptop, and then we will walk through the creation of a little video together. So it's very active, and I'll also show them how to use these videos within an LMS and construct something that's very easy for people to use, and also how to put these kinds of materials in their syllabus if they're doing flipped classes. So it'll be very hands-on, very practical, and I think people will very much enjoy it.
Thank you, Barbara. I just want to add one thing. Barbara needs 3 or 4 Camtasia elves to help assist. So if anybody who is listening feels confident in their Camtasia to provide that kind of support, just put your name in the chat, and the first 4 we get win. Barbara, I can't wait.
Do you have a sense of how many people have registered then?
Nancy will be on in a little bit, and she'll probably share that. But I know that I think we allocated 50 spaces for your workshop, and we only had a few left as of Friday. So,
okay, we definitely want elves then.
Yeah, we need 3 or 4 Camtasia elves, yep, in addition to me.
And Nancy did mention that we have 3 or 4 already, but perhaps we could use another.
Yes.
Sure. Well, you know what? Stuff happens. So we'll work it out. We'll put you in the queue.
Very good. Well, thank you, Barbara. And I'm really looking forward to your keynote address and the workshop. And I've been using that as something on my campus to try to encourage people to attend, because I know a lot of people have used your MOOCs in their classes and they found them really impressive. So we're looking forward to seeing you.
The thing I do have to say is it's so easy. You can even do some green screen, some really seemingly sophisticated stuff so easily with it. So it'll be very exciting to share because it's something that potentiates the audience into some of these great and easy to use new materials.
Barbara, it's Lisa. I don't know if you're going to hang for the whole meeting today, but I will be talking a little bit about Coursera later. If you want to pop in, you're welcome to do that.
Oh, okay. I will try to do so. I'm a little crazy now because I'm working with Microsoft to developed this whole set of new videos, kids on learning, and so it will go on worldwide platforms. And I have a very tight deadline, so but it's exciting. So so
Not
I'll be able yeah, I'll be able to share a little bit about it at the conference, and I think people will be even more excited to hear about some of the things, the outreach you can do, and hopefully I can give some ideas about that too.
I'm really trying not to ask about the bench that you're sitting on. Microsoft looks like they have a church pew.
Well, I will be honest with you. It's actually the headboard of our bed.
Ah, okay.
I was hoping you'd think it was a couch, but I'm just perched up here. But at least I'm not in my pajamas.
Okay, I'm going to go shrink under my desk now. See you later.
No, good question. And I will hide. Okay, there we go.
Okay. Well, thank you, Barbara, and we're really looking forward to this. Now, back to our regularly scheduled meeting. I think we'll skip over this. We've used this slide many times before for the duties of FACT2 reps. So let's just jump ahead to our agenda. So you have an overview of what we're doing. Welcome, everybody. Our next item on the agenda will be John Zelenak, who will talk a little bit about the FACT2 awards.
Thank you, John. I'm going to attempt screen sharing here for the first time, folks. Let's hope I don't need technical assistance. All right, can we see my first slide there?
Excellent. All good, John.
Thank you. So this is the 4th year of the FACT2 Excellence Awards. And as always, I'm excited about being a part of it. We had 8 reviewers this year, like we normally do, and we reviewed about 22 nominations that were submitted. And I can say that on the next slide, you're going to see who won this year. It's been announced to the campus leadership for those campuses, and it's gone out on all our regular listservs already. So it's not news, but I want to say before I pull that slide up that it's such a thrill to be a part of these awards and to see every nomination come through. It is so hard for our reviewers to choose who can win these, because every nomination just seems better than the last one. It is unbelievable, and I always feel humbled and like I'm not worthy of my job when I see what other folks are doing at their campuses, and it's been transformative in my work. So lots of times, even for the nominations that aren't designated as the winners for each year, I'll pull information out of those, and I recommend other folks do this too. When we see the information posted for the winners, contact them and find out about what they're doing on their campus that you could replicate at your campus. I pull out little nuggets all the time to use on my campus. So without further ado, let's see if I can advance the slide here. There we go. There's our list of award winners this year. There's 10 individuals being recognized, although one of them is a team of 7 from Monroe Community College. You can expect to see these folks presenting and accepting their awards at CIT this year in Cortland at the end of May. And I'll leave this here for you folks to read. I know it's a lot to digest. And so our reviewers this year, we actually had 9, because one of our reviewers for one of our categories knew the person that submitted a nomination, so we had to pull somebody in at the last minute. And I want to say a special thanks to Frank Junker and Mike Daly at Fulton for helping us out there. Frank was able to scramble and find someone at the last minute, and we were able to get the nominations all sorted through and figure out which was a winner in that category. And then last, I want to say that these folks are going to be at CIT. They're going to be presenting during the recognition lunch. So they'll be talking about the magic they've made at their campuses and how we can replicate that and share that across the system. They're also going to receive their awards from Provost Wang. No, wait. Yes. During her opening remarks at CIT. And if you guys have any questions, you can ask me now.
John, great job. Great
Yes.
work.
Thank you.
John has been leading this effort for several years and has done a fantastic job. And each year we have some really impressive award winners. So thank you. Okay, next up on the agenda is Jeffrey Ryman, who will be talking a bit about our symposium, which is being planned for next fall.
Hello, everybody. I am not going to show slides about the symposium. When you see my task group report that I'll be giving a little bit later, we'll tie it all together. The symposium is scheduled now for November 9th in Albany. We're going to put out a save the date for that, hopefully early next week. It is going to be a unique symposium because what we plan to do at this time is to have an open call for people who are doing research or practice using virtual reality tools. I'm going to be specific because the term mixed realities continues to evolve in definition. So we're looking specifically for people who are using virtual reality, augmented reality, and what we now call mixed reality tools, either in research or in their classroom practice. We're very interested in getting presenters who will not only present their work, but will also be part of an open session where they could actually demonstrate their work so that you'll have a chance to walk around and actually look at what people are doing, not just look at slides. So we anticipate a very active session. The task group on mixed reality deserves a lot of credit for brainstorming this and planning it. And they are just an outstanding group. And I want to also thank co-chairs Nancy Winters and Rachel Hagerman. We've really had an incredibly productive year. And I'll talk more about that later. But that's all I have for now, unless there's any questions about the symposium.
Okay.
Back to you, John.
Okay, hearing none, then we'll move on to task groups. Is Jill, are you on?
Yes, I am. How are you?
Okay,
How are you?
very good.
Excellent. I have a slideshow, so let me just try to share my screen here so that you all could see things. Hopefully you can hear me well. All right. Can you see my slides?
Perfect.
Excellent. All right. Well, hello, everyone, from actually sunny Syracuse. It's beautiful here, and I hope it is just as nice down in Albany or Saratoga, or wherever you might be meeting. I'm not sure. So I'm happy to bring you news about our micro-credentialing task group. The task group itself, the charge was set before us about this time last year, actually, and we were meant to document current practices within higher education, establish frameworks, protocols, and learning opportunities that can be used by SUNY institutions system-wide to initiate a micro-credentialing effort at their own campus. Guided by principles that are now not just proposed, but have been adopted by the SUNY trustees, generated by the SUNY Provost Committee on Microcredentials. The approach that was taken would allow for campus autonomy in creation and administration of microcredentials while reducing the effort required by the campus to kind of get up to speed about things. It also would create a common language about microcredentialing and provide an environment where we can all network and work together to learn best practices and to advance their own, a campus's own effort. So the group came together and we determined some goals for ourselves. So that we were going to collect and document information on the development and use of microcredentials. It's an evolving field among higher education institutions nationwide and globally. And so it was also meant to create pathways between non-credit and credit, being responsive to industry and so on. We were to develop educational resources to promote the development of high quality and meaningful micro-credentials within SUNY and raise that level of understanding of the use and effectiveness of micro-credentials. So that was our goal, and we had an expectation of needing to deliver some of these items by CIT of May of 2018. And so we ended up with a very large group of members. Now, this membership roster that you see is kind of represents all the people over the course of this year who have asked to be part of this group. So there's varying levels of engagement, and some that have taken themselves off for various and sundry reasons. But that's 32 people you see there from 24 institutions, and that is both community colleges, state-operated colleges, university campuses, and SUNY. So I think this is a really nice cross-section of the system. It's also cross-functional in that there are multiple roles represented by the people involved here. I didn't write down all of their titles, but you'll see if you looked at them, they span faculty, instructional designers, distance learning offices, continuing education offices, student services, and so on. So it was a really good one. Our group got together virtually 8 times since April 19th of 2017. Our last meeting will be coming up here May 2nd or thereabouts. Again, I said we're working to an end date of CIT 2018, which is May 20th or thereabouts at Cortland. We also were pleased to be able to coordinate and offer the November 3rd symposium, FACT2 Symposium in Saratoga last year about micro-credentials as well. The group identified, well, how are we going to be able to hit the goals that we set, that were set for us in the charge? And so we ended up coming into 3 different areas, three different kind of themes, I guess. A tools and frameworks theme, an educational resources theme, and a community of practice theme, so that this can continue, this connection amongst campuses and discussion about micro-credentials. So under tools and frameworks, 3 deliverables were placed before us. A micro-credentialing vocabulary and resource list. Again, this is a emerging kind of entity or concept at colleges, especially in SUNY. They're an academic quality rubric to make sure that micro-credentials have academic quality and are of value, not just to industry, but also are seen as meaningful learning experiences. And then a communication plan for how do we get out these wonderful tools and resources to people system-wide. The next theme was educational resources. So we set out to create a self-paced online learning module resulting in a badge so someone can experience what a micro-credential might look like, as well as to offer professional development webinars. And then the community of practice, we wanted to make sure that there was a website where the information could live and reference material could be readily available system-wide, and to have a workplace forum which includes a list of expert contacts and people who are just talking about micro-credentialing in the field as it evolves. So to take a little bit of a deeper dive in that, under the tools and frameworks category, the micro-credentialing vocabulary and resource list was a subcommittee chaired by Nan Travers of Empire State College and Ken Lindblom of Stony Brook that has about 15 members in it, and they are about to have a formal final document available to people to reference at CIT or shortly before. They were using the documentation that the SUNY Provost Task Force came up with, as well as industry expert guides and so on. But they were very, very careful to make sure that they followed the kind of the will of SUNY in terms of how the trustees interpreted that task force report and adopted it. The academic quality rubric for micro-credentials is also chaired by Nan Travers and also Christy Fogel of Monroe Community College. That quality rubric will also be available around CIT. We have one more meeting in May. That meeting in May is to review these last kind of deliverables, so everybody on the committee has an opportunity to give input and they can be refined a little bit further as needed. And then the communication plan, Mindy Cole of Ulster Community College is chairing that, and that is basically a suggestion for SUNY, and potentially that our committee would help kind of spread the good word, so to speak, about all of these different options and resources for people system-wide. So that's ready. Next, we have, under the educational resources, we have a self-paced online learning module and professional development webinars. So the self-paced online learning module co-chairs are Chris Price of the SUNY Center for Professional Development and Stephen Tippett of SUNY. They have been working with quite a bunch of members, 10 members, to create a lesson plan, so to speak, so that they can place this out on the website and people can access this as they feel is appropriate. I know that they were going to try to integrate videos that were taken of the FACT2 symposium that was held last November, as well as potentially some of the webinars that are listed on the right side of the page. So they're hoping to make it interactive, engaging, and as I said before, culminate in a badge. That, again, will be available as we head closer to CIT here. So we're in the home stretch. Finally, the professional development webinars, on this page anyway, finally. Co-chairs are Chris Price of SUNY Center for Professional Development and John Kane of SUNY Oswego and FACT2 fame. And so there are 5 members on that group, but that has been a very vibrant and active group for sure. Hopefully you've all been invited to the various and sundry professional development webinars about microcredentialing. They're meant to be quick, lunchtime snippets of information so people can see from those campuses or hear from those campuses that have already offered microcredentials, and then the speakers can talk about how they got to the point where they are today and what they've learned and so on. Again, they're all recorded and there are links available so that people can see them later. And then the final slide I have for you is the community of practice, or not the final slide. Yeah, it is the final slide. Sorry. And the final theme. Under the community of practice, we have both the workplace forum and the website. The workplace forum, that actually was fairly an easy light lift for us because that was already created. There's a microcredentialing group on Workplace. It's an open group. And so there are people involved in that group that across SUNY that are not part of our team, which is fine. Is wonderful, actually. Alexandra Pickett is in charge of that. And it is a vibrant group. If any of you are not on there, please feel free to ask to join and you'll be on there because there's quite a lot of posts going on about different opportunities for professional development that might be offered by other external to SUNY groups, and then articles about them and best practices and so on. Then also a website. The other thing we wanted to know is where was this going to live in perpetuity, because this is an evolving field, and how would we continue our to access resources and where would it go? Well, we're really happy that that's going to be up on the SUNY website. And so I know that Chris Price of SUNY CPD and Stephen Tippett of SUNY are the chairs of that group, and they are it's kind of already out there on SUNY. So as we continue with these items, they are going to be all posted there. And so I think that is a work in progress right now, but it is kind of the final piece of our puzzle. So with that, my report's done. I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
And Jill, thank you for a wonderful job. This task group has been incredibly active and has done more than most of our task groups over several years. So I've been really impressed by how well everyone's worked together and how much they've been able to do in such a short time. You know, it's easy when you have excited people. There are a lot of people who are really excited about microcredentialing and really wanted to learn more and get their hands right into it. So, so I really had an easy job. Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity. Any questions from anybody? Okay, next up on the agenda is Jeffrey Ryman, who also has been leading a very effective task group. Jeffrey.
Here I come. Let me just share my screen. Everybody can see this beautiful slide, I hope?
Yes.
Okay, good. So when we started this task group on mixed realities, we went through a lot of discussion even on what it means. And as I mentioned earlier, the definitions of what mixed realities are have evolved even in the last 12 months. These are the members of the group. You may notice that we have people from outside of SUNY as well. You'll see from Vietnam and San Diego, and we also have a few people who have actually asked to join since. We have a very diverse and active group of people who are both practitioners and people who want to learn. So we sort of represent the full range of, let's put it, people who are interested, people who are actively teaching, and people who are actively researching. So we wanted to explore mixed realities, which encompass augmented reality, virtual reality, online simulations. And now the term mixed reality refers more specifically to the inclusion of virtual and augmented and real spaces all working together. And I'm sure that definition will continue to evolve. So we began exploring both secondary and primary resources, and we began to focus more on tools than research and teaching initially, but then we shifted to looking at research and action and what is being done now. The curricular outcomes will help drive the tools. We don't really want to see the tools drive the teaching. Want the horse in front of the cart. So our original plan was, you'll see there were 3 segments here for primary, secondary research. We have already acquired a great deal of secondary research, which we will share. We'll probably have to update. The primary research phase is really kind of wrapping up right now. And we are going, I'm going to talk more about communication strategies in a bit. But our ultimate goal is to create a community of practitioners, and you'll see why. So, of course, we made a survey, and this took quite a bit of time because it actually has 3 routes. The teacher, instructional designer, a series of questions versus a researcher / or librarian. And then, of course, the people who want to do neither. And that actually was a bigger group than we expected. So the respondents come from many different places. And if you look at this chart, you'll see that non-SUNY represents 42% of the representation. The N is not huge, it's 123. However, based on past surveys we've done of this nature, this is a pretty high number, especially when we look at the quality of the research respondents we're getting. Okay, so here are how the respondents go. Planning to use or not use. If you look on the right, you'll see that 28% have no intention at this time. 8% are saying they will, and 64% are saying maybe. Lisa Stevens is sitting in the audience somewhere there, but she'll also attest to the fact that when we did a survey about 1.5 years ago on Labster, we got very similar results. But once people begin to try the tools, they will surprise you as once they get their curricular imagination ignited. If you look at current usage, 35% of the respondents are using some form of MR, and we think that's really relative to the fact that we were really looking for researchers. I think if we just asked everybody, current use would be far, far lower for a lot of reasons, including cost. So I'm going to attempt to show this video of somebody using Tilt Brush to actually teach anatomy. I hope that it works. Let's see.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Tony Caparelli from the illustration department. When I was first staff.
I'm going to scrub ahead here.
Walk around as you draw it. No, not there. You're going to continue the line. Okay, right there. Okay, what?
So just to give you some context, they scanned the skeleton into Tilt Brush, which allows them to work from every angle. And then the anatomy instructor, in addition to teaching drawing, is also teaching them how to draw muscles on the skeleton. Here we go.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. All right, now go from where you had that point on the clavicle. Now, and you can walk around as you draw it. No, not there. You're going to continue the line, the first line that you did, but you're going to make it more precise to that point. Go to the clavicle, that very point, right, and you're going to go there. Now step to the side. So as you draw, yeah, look, see how you're moving it into the bone now?
I love to watch that video, but we will be showing many other use cases when we have our symposium. And our summative report will be on at 2 o'clock Wednesday, May 23rd at CIT. In the summer, we plan to complete and share the report. We also are going to track back to people who are actually doing research to further delve into what they're doing and try to add that to the report. Plus, any of the people who did research or are teaching with it will also receive a request to submit a proposal for the symposium. Even though we only have 4 or 5 speaking slots, our open session where people can walk around and try things will be accommodating a much larger group. So the symposium is November 9th. That is just confirmed moments before the session started. And I'd be happy to take any questions right now, but we're in the process of actually crunching data and reaching out. So these are the broad strokes of where we are right now. And John, I can hand it back to you.
Okay. Well, thank you, Jeffrey. Any questions for Jeffrey? Okay, Jill, are you still online? Is Jill still online? Okay, we had a question in the chat about the micro-credentials policy in terms of SUNY-wide micro-credentials. And okay, I don't think I'm seeing Jill. Okay, so we'll see if we can get back with more information on that. But my understanding, at least, is that the policies adopted are only, at this point, for campus-based systems, and that I believe SUNY is talking, SUNY admin is talking about what will happen with other things, such as credentials offered by CPD. Is there anyone from CPD, perhaps, who might be able to address that question at this point about system-wide micro-credentials?
Hey, John, this is Kim. I can chime in. Oh, do you want to go ahead, Lisa?
No, go ahead, Kim. Fine.
So yes, John, we are discussing that and trying to make sure that what we're doing here, whether it be from CPD, Open SUNY, COIL, or other entities at the system level, that we are aligned with the microcredentials policy. So I think that you know, there are a lot of really great things that we have been doing that do align, but one of the things that we have to look at is what the governance structures are for identifying and approving microcredentials. And we think we have some ideas about, you know, how to accomplish that, but it's, you know, still very much in the discussion phase.
Okay, very good. So more information will come out on that as policies are determined. Okay. Thank you, Kim. So now, Lisa Stevens is up next with the Educational Transformation Task Group report.
Thank you so much, John. Ours is going to be a fairly quick report, but I wanted to start with the charge because this is a messy task group. We really wanted to take a look at the landscape and identify some of the opportunities out there that can be mined within SUNY. And we thought we would focus around some of the larger issues in higher ed that we knew were certainly emerging and starting to move toward maturity in SUNY. So obviously OER, adaptive modular, self-guided learning, that should be particularly helpful to our adult learners. wanted to look at MOOCs as part of a credit-based landscape, and also wanted to look at how we can be more effective in supporting lifelong and professional learning, including perhaps workforce and economic development opportunities. So the messiness of this is, okay, how do we get together and organize material and move forward into a solid deliverable? Well, the first great news in all of this is Nan Travers also agreed to support this task group, and she certainly brought an awful lot of energy and resources in terms of, you know, how Empire has wrangled with some of these issues. And what it wound up being more than anything was almost like a coffee chat. And I would invite Stan or Dale or, you know, any of the other members to pop in and comment along the way. And as Jill expressed, there were a lot of people that were in or commented or participated in varying degrees. But what we wound up doing was book reports. We started with book reports. And this is just a screenshot. It is not a complete screenshot, but you can see, you know, where we went to the literature and said, you know, what can we learn and how can we anchor our work? What's the literature guide, both from the past and what's currently going on? That led to conversations which are pretty much a mini SWOT analysis. We didn't do anything real formal at this level, but we all agreed that SUNY is doing a better job of connecting people across the system and doing a good job of identifying people and connecting both at the sector level and at the interest level. And that's certainly been well supported by several rounds now of IITG, and now at the campus level with the PIF awards. Of course, the weakness, or the challenge would be a better word, is that campus autonomy. And of course, there's a lot of diversity within every one of our unique campuses. So it all kind of boils down to really good staff with limited bandwidth, really good faculty, and tools that are not always broadly shared across the system. And we understand that's for all sorts of good reasons, but then how can we find each other? So when Jeffrey's investigating something like AR or VR and has access to some tools or is aware of some tools on some other campuses, how can we connect and find each other? So we want to be able to leverage those opportunities, those pockets of enthusiasm, and find the people that have access to some tools. And then, boy, oh boy, how do we do it within that task group time frame of a year, and how do we turn it into clear deliverables? So in our case, we decided the best way to do that was to use our collective wisdom, such as it is, and we built a matrix. And we are going to present this matrix in a more digestible form. But if you look across the book reports and how we started to leverage the content that's in those book reports, we started to tease out themes. And sometimes we teased out multiple themes from single sources. Obviously, the Horizon report, you know, is just rich with lots and lots of themes. So this was a pretty extensive, some pretty extensive work in terms of the group dividing and conquering and looking up how we can track that to our focus. So there's the focus from our charge. How are we going to find sort of the takeaway item from each of the book reports, identify the challenges, identify the opportunities, and then we use some language from our friends from the International Center of Creative Studies at Buff State and said, how might we? You know, how are we going to leverage this? How to, very first one, how to foster unbundled content and share it institutionally. How are we going to do that across the system? So there was a lot of altitude sickness here, because one minute we'd be talking broadly about higher education globally or across the nation. Next minute we'd be narrowing things down to a campus level. So it was really an interesting set of conversations. And then we started thinking through, all right, what are the general ideas for new practices? You can see how there's a lot of overlap with where we're going with some of the other task groups. So we might be able to use a lot of these outcomes and start to create a more strategic approach to task group ideas, to TIF ideas, and to institutionalizing some of these outcomes. I'm happy to share this matrix with anyone who'd like to see it. But in general, that's the work. I think I saw that Stan was in, and John, if you'd like to comment, you were in on almost all the meetings, and perhaps Dale or Jen is in as well.
There was some really good discussions in there, and it was nice to have this opportunity to step back and look at where SUNY is going and where higher ed is going. And I think it was a very productive group.
Even though we don't have fancy, pretty slides.
You've been doing quite a bit, Lisa.
Thanks, Janelle.
Any questions for Lisa? Or Stan, do you have something to add?
Nope, not at this time. Yeah, it was a fun group to work with. So a lot of interesting ideas and potential, especially for these dollar strap days.
I actually was wondering the relationship of this group to applied learning as another topic area. This is Hope. Hi. I saw that your areas are MOOCs and a couple other things but I just wondered about sort of experiential, real world stuff. Are you also looking at that as sort of a bucket?
Oh, sure. That emerged as a theme, Hope, and thank you for asking. And I'd be happy to share the whole grid with you so you can take a look at it and perhaps offer some additional resources. I think we started to narrow on the why does it matter, where does it matter, and then how do we apply it. Is that fair, Stan?
Yeah, I would say that's fair. Yeah, I mean, it started out as a very high level. I think the book reviews were great just for generating ideas and see where ideas overlapped. But then, it also forced being able to think differently. That sometimes we get caught in our rut. We know what other SUNY institutions are doing by looking outside and pulling ideas, that was useful.
Yeah, I think we looked at applied learning and experiential learning as really important elements. Now, how to share that more broadly throughout the system, we could probably use some more time and focus on that.
Perhaps a grid could be shared in Workplace now for the Campus Reps group, along with any slides we have today.
What a great idea. I'm still getting used to using Workplace.
At least it's a starting point.
Yep. That's terrific. Thank you, John. I'll do that.
Okay. Any other questions for Lisa? Okay. Next up, we have Nancy Matundo, who will be talking a little bit about CIT.
Okay. Let me share my screen to find. There we go. Sorry, I was in the middle of updating. Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Okay. So very briefly, I just wanted to go through the dates for CIT, May 22nd through the 25th, on the campus of SUNY Cortland. We have early bird registration that goes on through May 7th. That's $250. And then overall registration will end on May 14th. I've got the website there for folks. Some of the highlights we kind of already talked about. Barbara Oakley. Barbara was good enough to join us today and go through some things, so I won't take any time on this slide. Our featured speakers are Robin DeRosa from Plymouth State University. She's going to be doing an OER talk, open for the public, practice for hopeful higher ed. Then we have Lisa Stevens and Rebecca, is it Frazee? Lisa?
It is Freezy.
Frazee, okay. And they are talking about Flex Space, one-stop shop for learning, spaces it should be, I'm sorry. I have a typo in there. Learning spaces, design, pedagogy, and community. And Patricia Thompson from SUNY System Administration talking about the first year of implementation on the Excelsior Scholarship. Some of our special activities that we have coming up. We've got a VR event that Rich Blam is going to be doing. We're holding that on both Tuesday and Thursday. We're really excited about that. And we're looking at a possible sponsorship for the Google Glasses. We had a couple of conversations, and I'm hoping that they're moving forward with that. We also have a study tour of the Seven Valleys New Tech Academy, and that's going to be noon to 2 on Tuesday. That is full at this point. Just very briefly, CIT scholarships, we have a new one for this year. It's the Sharon Gallagher Memorial Scholarship, and I did send something out to the listservs on that. It provides financial assistance for first-time attendees and covers the cost of the registration, meals, which are part of the registration costs, and the on-campus housing. Folks can submit application letters through Friday, and you can find additional information on the CIT website as well. Sponsors, we have a Platinum, Wiley & Sons, Gold is Cengage. We have 5 silver, Carolina Biological, LinkedIn, Macmillan, McGraw-Hill, and Quickly. Bronze, we have Apple, Canvas, Labster, and Starfish. And then booths, so far we have B&H, Echo 360, which they just came on board. That's why I was doing some updates. Proctor U, Reed Speaker, Steel Case Education, and Top Hat. Now there are still some opportunities available, so if anyone knows of someone who might be interested in participating, we do have space. The Platinum and the Gold we can't accommodate anymore, but we do have a couple spaces available for Silver or anything other than that. Just some information on what you can find on the website. The schedule at a glance, I'm trying to keep that updated as much as possible as I get information from the vendors. I've been adding that. Hotels, I know that the Hampton Inn is sold out, but we have a number of other hotels where we have special conference rates available, and it is the per diem rate at each of them. We also have on-campus housing that's still available. For individuals who are presenting at CIT, we have publishing opportunities, and information on that is available on the website. And then the information on the scholarships. And then the last thing, just to remind folks that we do need facilitators for all of our sessions. So you can do that online. It's at signup.com. And I did send something out to the listservs on that, but if anyone has any questions on the duties of a facilitator or how to sign up, feel free to email me and I can send that to you. But you can also find that information on the CIT website. And I'm looking forward to seeing everyone there.
Nancy, there was a question about the early registrant code in the chat.
There isn't a specific code for early registrations. It's automatic up until a certain date.
Okay. So there's no special, the code is only for presenters, as I recall.
That's correct, yes.
So can I just put a little pitch in here at CIT? The Campus Rep Luncheon is something we would love to see everybody come to. This is a big event this year, and every year it's a big event, we say, but this year is a big event, and we would love to get to see as many of you as possible there. We have a very interesting program, and it definitely is a worthwhile investment of your time while you're at the conference. So if any questions, you can just put that into the chat or contact John Kane or myself. But we are anxious to get attendance up to the max that we can possibly achieve. Thank you. And thank you, Nancy.
Thank you. I'll stop sharing. There we go.
Okay, thank you. The next item is Lisa Stevens again, who will talk a little bit about IATG awards or SUNY Coursera MOOCs, as well as FlexSpace, which grew out of one of our most successful earlier FACT2 task groups.
Thanks, John. So the question everybody probably wants to ask is, when will the award notifications go out? And the answer is, I think it will be happening very soon. There were some deliberations going on in the Office of the Provost in terms of whether some projects could be funded from some alternate resources, and some questions around some specific projects. And we don't like to put out partial announcements. So we want all the announcements for funding to go out at the same time. But I did want to put up at least the numbers of where we were, very similar to last year's numbers. We had 68 proposals this year, and that was for, the usual close to $1.5 million to $2 million. So an awful lot of powering down to do there. We wish we could fund all of them, but the reality is the peer reviewers work very, very hard to give every proposal a fair review. And then the IIRC goes in, the Innovative Instruction Research Council goes through all of the proposals as well. So you can see the numbers broken out by tier and what the funding request was. And we think there is a range, an approximation of the number or the amount of money that will be allocated. And we don't know exactly what the percentage of the funding success will be out of those 68 proposals. But to date, we've had about $4.2 million distributed over 6 rounds. I don't think we'll break the $5 million mark this year for total distributions, but we anticipate probably a little north of $600,000 worth of awards and probably south of $675,000. It all depends on the conversations taking place this week and next. So wish I could give you more information on that, but that's where we are right at the moment. I did want to share a couple of other details in terms of trends. We did see a lot of proposals come in with micro-credentials. I just said in all shapes and sizes. So it's clear that the message about micro-credentials is out. And now that we have some policy to guide that, I think a lot of people are excited to start experimenting with that at the campus level. We did see some more OER-related projects come in. Some OER projects are eligible for the larger pool of OER funds, but remember that those funds are largely to develop the gen ed classes, the high population classes, the content, both creating and also adopting a lot of those open textbooks, open resources to help save students money. So we might be able to fund a couple of the IITG proposals from that. That's still being worked through. MOOCs, we know how to make MOOCs. The opportunity to learn from IITG funds is moving beyond just the production of a MOOC, so we can learn from that into the application of what MOOCs have to offer. So there were some MOOCs that were proposed that are attached to badging and also looking at some new partnerships around cross-campus initiatives with some MOOCs. Certainly, Jeffrey will be glad to hear that there was an awful lot of proposals in there that were looking at things like 360-degree cameras, augmented reality, virtual reality, starting to apply more of it, and then how to scale it up more effectively in the classroom or across a curriculum. And likewise, we're seeing the trends for maturity. You can take a look at that. E-portfolio, we didn't see much of anything come in. We think most campuses have either adopted an e-portfolio or well understand how they function. The Innovative Instruction Research Council is a terrific group of people, very thoughtful, very deliberative group of people. It's almost like a mini FACT council. And some of the discussions we had around the table is, can we come up with a better or at least clearer example of what innovation means. So by the time we get around the funding table, we have a more agreed upon or more consensus, not just around the table, but across the system of what innovation means and how innovation moves the ball. We want to look at how SUNY can play in larger trends across higher ed. We want to find that balance between seeding and incentivizing. And as best I could tell, the differentiation is that seeding good ideas is bring all of your good ideas to the table. We don't want to say no to any good idea, but we want to also incentivize some ideas that we know there are people out there working on certain things, and how can we create an RFP to lay out a breadcrumb trail, if you will, to where we think we need to be going. And then we'll probably be tightening up the review process, because we all agree that we spend an awful lot of time talking about each proposal when, you know, the peer reviewers have often done a very good, very, very heavy lift, and we think we can streamline that process a bit more. Now, I'm not paying attention to the comments, so let me see if I can pull up any chat if there's questions about that. Oop. Actually, can someone feed them to me, because I don't want to clutter up my screen with it either if you see stuff come in. We will be creating an IITG workplace group. There's one in there for research innovation. We just recently created this one, and it was closed off. We were going to populate it just with the people that have received awards in the past or will receive one this time coming up. And then we thought, no, let's just open it up to everyone. Everyone should be able to see, you know, where the IITGs are, where they're going. Perhaps we can start to leverage workplace a little more effectively than the blog post. We'll see, still to be worked out. Okay, so questions about IITG before I move on to FlexSpace. Moving right along. As John and Nancy mentioned, we will have a special session at CIT around FlexSpace. And the real reason we want to talk about FlexSpace, in addition to being a very cool, useful tool, is that it is absolutely a SUNY success story, where we went from a few records inside the SUNY system, and then it started to expand across some other campuses across the country, and the stats are now amazing. We're north of in 45 countries with over 1,400 EDUs. This number is a little bit out of date. 3,000 users, 1,400 institutions in a minimum of 45 countries. You can see where we think we're going with the new interface. You'll notice that this yellow line here at the bottom was pretty flat compared to the other lines. And that represents the spaces that were being contributed. And I've mentioned in a few different forums that the challenge was that, you know, it was a bit of a clunky interface. We loved the partnership that we had with the shared shelf tool that ArtStore was offering. Once ArtStore was taken over by Ithaca S&R Research, they retired those servers, and I don't even know if they've retired the service, but I know they retired the servers that our FlexSpace was sitting on, and that required us to move up the timeline to talk about how we are going to meet the vision of getting all of our content into a mobile-friendly platform. Out of the analytics that we pull out of the system, you can see who is actually in FlexSpace. This is a really nice cross-section of roles and really nice representation across the different departments that are in, be it through academic departments. You can see a really nice percentage of affiliation in there, and you can see a nice distribution across the pie. Why is that important? Because as we're traveling around the country, or as it expands across the globe, we want to make sure that we're gathering more sponsors. And I have to say that when you start playing around with custom portal development, it ain't cheap. In fact, it's amazingly expensive in order to get the functionality in there that all of our user feedback says that they want, and in order to support the research initiative. So I'm not going to read through this entire slide. I'm happy to share it, but there's a couple of, forgive the phrase, some hotshot researchers across the globe. We have people in the UK, people in Paris, in Australia, in Japan, that have formed their own research group and want to leverage the analytics that are starting to be or will be grown inside FlexSpace for trend analysis. They want to be able to track the increased capacity of physical built environments that integrate things like AR and VR, holograms for all I know. So we're really excited to have real academic researchers who came to FlexSpace. FlexSpace did not go to them. We helped to coordinate some of those efforts. So that's another exciting development. I did not have time to pull the pictures, the latest and greatest, out of the portal, but we are very close to going full production where you can easily upload these pictures. You can filter by the room size, by the project scope, by the institutions. All of the data that was in the old system was migrated over. So this is currently live. You can actually go to flexspace.org and request an account in the new user interface and start to get a feel for how that content's being presented. For the people at Buff State, don't get nervous. We know some of this is not accurate. A lot of this is placeholder as it was being laid out in the new portal. So you'll be able to filter by galleries and look at various galleries by institution. Campuses that want to warehouse their entire classroom collection inside FlexSpace will be able to do that and then pull links out for their campus applications. So that's a nice value add. And the other thing that we're pretty excited about is this concept of idea boards. It's a little Pinteresty like. I'm not a Pinterest user, but I'm told that that's sort of how it functions. But the idea is I can be working on developing a space. I can be looking at tools that are being used for a particular curricular application, go in, filter, and start an idea board. And from there, boom, you can share your idea board. Same thing with the featured set here. Moving on to Coursera. I'll take a look in a minute in the comments to see if there's anything about FlexSpace, but I know we're running a little short of time. So Coursera's current wish list is all about engineering and healthcare. That's their two big focus areas. And this is where they're pulling data about where the engineering jobs are, parsed out by discipline. They're getting this out of labor statistics, burning glass, and you can see the various fields. Up here is interesting, electrical and electronics, and then followed surprisingly by mechanical engineering. But I thought one of the better lines, and this is a little different view about where the jobs are, but one of the better lines out of all of this is about transdisciplinary skills. I wish Harry Pence were in on the call. He would love this because it's all about that transdiscipline. And what a friend of mine said, hey, when I was in school, mechanical engineers learned about mechanical things, et cetera, et cetera. Now I have to be able to bring to an employer a blend of skills in order to be an effective engineer. So these are the bullet points of what we're looking at in terms of Coursera. We do believe that there is a limited window of opportunity to pull out our brand as SUNY and as individual institutions. Not trying to paint a scary picture, but that's just the reality. We think that there is a real opportunity for the publics in particular to get in there with affordable education shared at a global level. Micro-credentialing is being very closely watched by Coursera. They've introduced a whole new master track that will allow credit-based offerings. And by the way, if you're interested in that, give me a call, because the revenue share is higher for credit-bearing courses than it is through the non-credit-bearing courses. And certainly, this will help adult learners, and we're well positioned with our OER services to help complement all of those learning opportunities. I've shared this slide before, happy to share it again. It's pretty much just the path of how Coursera assists. And then finally, we are trying to populate more into the MOOCshake group. So that's pretty much my story at the moment. By the way, check out MTech MOOC if you haven't. That's a really sweet little MOOC that's getting off the ground. It's an extension of the TOEP project. So I'll put in a plug for Robin and Cherie and all the people that have been working on that. Questions? Oh, good, no questions. Really? That was a lot of content.
A lot of content, Lisa. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, next up is Kim Scalzo, who will be giving reports from system administration and Open SUNY.
Good morning, everyone. I think it is still morning. So I have a couple of sets of slides that I'll try to go through quickly so that we can get to everything. So let me just share. I'll start with the sysadmin update. So let me see. I think when I do this, you get, how's that? Does that look all right?
Yes.
Okay. So I'm going to just give a little bit of a status update of a couple of searches that are happening here at System. I'll talk about Performance Improvement Fund, the Open Access Policy, and I just have a quick reference on the micro-credentials policy, and then we'll have hopefully a couple of minutes for questions. So the first thing is that the provost search has been concluded. We're expecting announcement soon. It is possible, I think we're hoping that once that person gets announced that they're going to be here shortly thereafter. I don't have any details on those times. That's just kind of what we're hearing at this point. So stay tuned for your announcements via email. I think most of you also know that we are searching for a new Chief Information Officer following the retirement of Dave Pawalik last year. And that search I know is in process. I think it's in that quiet phase of they've gotten resumes and are trying to figure out who they bring in for interviews. And I do think that there will be some opportunities for campus participants from the CIO community to participate in those interviews. So I know we'll hear about that when that gets to that point. On the Performance Improvement Fund, I think you'll all remember that there were a few themes that emerged from the process that we went through last year with the Performance Improvement Fund, namely that campuses are facing common challenges in several areas, and we wanted to try to bring people together to work on those common challenges. We are working with limited resources, so we have to really look to leverage best practices that are in place and have campuses that have those best practices work with campuses that are trying to improve in particular areas. We heard a lot from campuses that there is really a need and an interest in collaboration and professional development, but a need for spaces for that to happen. That, you know, given the distributed nature of our system, that can be challenging for us. We also identified areas where there is a need for sharing infrastructure and leveraging our economy of scale in order to overcome some of the challenges that we're facing. And I'll talk a little bit about those. And then there was some really, I thought, good conversation and a theme that emerged around enhancing our competitiveness as a system nationally, as opposed to what I think many of us perceive as competition from campus to campus. And that's not to say that that doesn't exist at some level, but I think what we realized as we looked at the national context in many of the areas that we looked at in the Performance Improvement Fund is that the national competition is greater. And if we work together as a system, we can have greater impact. So those were the themes. As we go forward with the awards and the allocation of funding, some of the outcomes that we're expecting are that we are going to have collaboration across campuses, so multiple campuses working together towards the same challenges to hopefully have more scalable and system-wide impact, so that it's not just we're giving each campus money and they solve the challenge on their campus and impact their students, but if we work together, we can actually do a better job at that. And what we're really hoping to do in the key areas that we have focused funding in is to really move the dial and be able to demonstrate that we've had impact and deliver tangible results. So those are outcomes. You know, as we've been working through this performance improvement fund process, we had a new chancellor come in last fall, and we heard from her in January at the State of the University System address. I put the link for her address up there. And we'll just say quickly here that she outlined 4 themes which will characterize and be the foundation of her chancellorship. And they are innovation and entrepreneurship, individualized education, sustainability, and partnerships. And I would encourage you, if you haven't heard about them or you haven't seen the address that she gave in January, to go and look at that, because I think it gives some good insights into other things that you might be seeing from SUNY. And as we think about how the Performance Improvement Fund evolves, we are thinking about that as well. So that's kind of, these are themes that we continue to come back to. So in the end, what we ended up doing was funding projects that fall within 8 different areas, and they're listed up here. And we are funding projects tied to communities of practice. So what we're really trying to do is bring together people from campuses who propose to do things, I'll just say in the student recruitment area, to work together on a small number of projects in student recruitment. Same thing with regard to student success. How do we move the dial on student success across the system? That's actually a fairly large community of practice. And how do we connect different initiatives around student success. New models for enhancing enrollment, retention, and completion includes things like, you heard from Jill on the micro-credentials task force, also looking at different models for, teaching with technology, some of the stuff that's happening in the IITG space, some of the stuff that's happening in the OER space, how are we supporting faculty development in that area. So a lot that falls in there with a focus on enhancing enrollment, retention, and completion. The core SIS framework is really about helping a small number of our campuses who don't have an enterprise information system in place, and helping them do a migration to Banner so that they can have access to system-wide resources and applications for students like DegreeWorks and cross-registration. Critical workforce needs and curriculum development is really about funding either new program development or revisions to programs aligned with the areas that have been identified by the high needs area. Apprentice is funding 2 new areas of apprenticeships across SUNY, and I believe they are advanced manufacturing and IT. So these are areas where apprenticeships don't currently exist, and the New York State Department of Labor and the Governor's Office has provided funding to build them. Applied learning is to support the whole area and the wide scope of applied learning across the campuses. And then diversity and inclusion, same thing, to support that whole area and the work that campuses are doing towards their diversity plans. So those are the 8 communities of practice that are out there that have been funded. What does that look like from a process? How are we building these communities of practice? So I think many of you know we had a series of campus engagement sessions in the summer last summer. And that was really to help go from what individual campuses had presented to what might the strategies be for a community of practice to work together in this area, and where could we really have impact. And what we ended up with as we made the funding awards and decisions in the fall were there were some single campus projects that were grouped together in a particular space. I would say the new models community of practice is like that, where campuses all came in with different proposals, and we've grouped them together in some of the areas that I've mentioned. We did have some multi-campus projects come forward, and so several of those we funded as they were. And then we had some system-wide projects, and these are mainly in the area of building infrastructure, in the areas of student recruitment. So we have different approaches, different types of projects, but in all cases, they are multi-campus, and they are looking at a strategy for SUNY as a system to help drive innovation and working collaboratively together, of course. One of the key elements of this process is the identification of metrics. So each community of practice has metrics that have been defined. In some cases, they're still being refined, but they're both to help us assess the impact and demonstrate where we are having impact. So those are some of the key elements of that. As I mentioned, we have 8 communities of practice. Those are at the kind of high level in those buckets that I described earlier. Many of them have what we're calling either subcommittees or sub-projects within them where there are more focused efforts. So some examples of that are in the student success area, we have a project for the implementation of early alerts, early alert systems. We have the Guided Pathways Initiative. Some of you may have heard of the Developmental English or Supportive Scheduling Initiative. So we have projects within student success, and those are being referred to as either subcommittees or sub-projects. We have assigned facilitators at both levels to help work with the communities of practice and to support them in their work. And we're looking at each of those large communities of practice having 2 convenings annually. So be looking for those announcements and those invitations in the coming months. At the sub-project or subcommittee level, those groups are meeting either monthly or quarterly to, share what they're doing. There's a lot of networking happening, which we wanted. And in addition to these convenings where people are coming together either face-to-face or virtually, we have established workplace groups for the communities of practice to continue what they're doing beyond the convenings and in between the convenings. So those are some of the mechanics of how the communities of practice are working and are happening. Okay, and I'm happy to answer questions about that. I want to just keep going to talk about the open access policy, which was approved recently by the Board of Trustees. And I'm going to give you the link to the full policy, but basically the final resolution calls for campuses to develop a specific policy for their campus by March 2020. And there's some other elements of what's included in the policy there on the slide. And I know you're going to get the slide, so I'm going to keep going. This is the link to the website that's been established where you can get the policy. And there's also a webinar today that is happening. I'll leave that slide up for a minute in case you want to write down the URL. And actually, I can put it in the chat as well. So that if you want more information, you can join the webinar. It is also being recorded. So if you aren't able to participate today, the recording will be available and will be distributed widely. And Jeffrey or John, if you remind me, I'll make sure that we share the link out to the recording with this group.
Okay.
And then finally, I just want to mention on the micro-credentials policy, I know Jill talked a lot about that, so I don't need to say much more, but there is a website also that has been set up where the board policy is. There's some guidelines document, and there's lots of work happening beyond the work that the SUNY, the FACT task group did to build on some of that work and to help campuses who are implementing. So look for more on micro-credentials as well. And that's it for me on system admin. And John, I don't know if you want to stop and take questions or you want me to just go on to Open SUNY.
Well, does anyone have any quick questions now? Okay, let's go on to Open SUNY.
Okay. Okay, I have to stop sharing and then reshare. Oh, I probably could have kept sharing, but we'll just do this. Okay, so next, update on a few items from Open SUNY perspective. So I always like to talk about what we're doing in Open SUNY from the perspective of what we're doing to support campus leaders, for student supports, and for faculty supports. And actually, I know Alex is on and she's going to give an update on faculty support, so I will just kind of tee that up for her. On the campus support side, we have some updates with the online recruitment solution, with the implementation of Blackboard's Ally product, Open SUNY Plus program nominations, and the campus dashboards. So if you've been on these webinars before, you've heard me talk about the online recruitment solution that we implemented with Ranku in pilot form a couple of years ago. Last year, we conducted an RFP for a longer-term contract that was awarded to Ranku, who throughout our pilot was actually purchased by Wiley Education Services. So that contract is now in place. We have literally just kicked off that project this month, and some of the things that we're looking to as we do this re-implementation is the opportunity for online programs to be have more detailed information so that prospective students can differentiate between what, an MBA at Oswego looks like versus an MBA, let's say, at the University of Buffalo. We hope there will be more visibility, or we will have more visibility for what the value of those Open SUNY Plus quality elements are. We've heard from campuses that that was an important thing, and so that will be in the new implementation. And we're also have procured and are providing funding for some additional services to individual campuses to support the workflow and process on their campus, including integration with your CRMs and with messaging where that might be needed. And we also are looking to increase data visibility for tracking conversions between campuses and Open SUNY. So in tandem with this project, SUNY is also implementing a new customer relationship management system. And so the combination of these two projects is really going to help us from a data visibility perspective. We still have a lot of work to do on the Open SUNY web presence, and so that will be happening as well. And we have formed a campus advisory team that represents both enrollment management staff and online learning staff to help inform the progress of this project along the way. So when we implemented the new Blackboard contract last December, we included in that the Ally product, which is an opportunity, a product to help campuses address the issue of accessibility with online students. So we rolled that out in I think early January to campuses, and we have had 25 campuses so far sign up to implement at some point this calendar year. It is available for the life of the contract, and we do expect that we'll have other people come on next year. So if that's something your campus is thinking about and you don't know about that, feel free to let me know and I can put you in touch with the right person on our campus. The thing I should point out is that while this product is part of the Blackboard contract, it actually works with other learning management systems as well. So even if you don't have Blackboard, this could be an option for you. I want to just give a plug and a reminder for Open SUNY Plus and remind you that this is a designation at the program level that signifies the campus and Open SUNY are committed to these 7 signature elements as part of the program. So some additional services for students and faculty and commitment to institutional level infrastructure to make sure that we are even going beyond what state ed requires us to do in online programs as kind of the SUNY signature for online programs. Why am I mentioning this? Because we still have the opportunity for campuses to nominate their programs for this Plus designation. And we know that some of you are doing this, but in case you're not, wanted to just remind you, why would you nominate your campus for these programs? I think that being able to say that your students are getting that personalized student services, your courses are being refreshed, speaks to your overall institutional level commitment to quality. It also does get you a subsidy for some of the new services that we're offering, and examples of that are funding that we're providing to Open SUNY Plus campuses who are implementing Ally, and to take advantage of the Ranku services that we're procuring. Whoops. And then in general, Open SUNY Plus campuses are who we come to with new services to ask them to test them and try them out, and they get to influence how we implement them. There are 2 prerequisites for that designation. You have to have gone through the Open SUNY institutional readiness process and the Open SUNY enrollment planning roundtable. And so if that's something you would like more information about, you can contact Dan Feinberg, who is our manager of campus partnerships. And he can talk to you more about that. Okay. I also wanted to share with you that we have a set of dashboards for campus faculty and staff to get access to data about what we're doing across SUNY and online learning. So I won't spend a lot of time there, but just encourage you to go look at those dashboards and see what do our inquiries look like for online, what do enrollments look like, how many course sections are online, how many programs do we have, and how many faculty are teaching online. So there's good data there. In many cases, you have options to filter by individual campus or sometimes by sector or you know, other categories of information. So it's a way for you to kind of see and understand what we're doing in online learning across the system. Student supports, I have a quick update on what we're doing with the concierge, on our online readiness, and the early alerts. So the concierge community of practice is active. They are meeting monthly and focusing on showcasing what individual campuses are doing to build and develop and leverage their concierges. We know that that role varies from campus to campus, so I think it's been interesting to see how campuses are implementing that role. And we're still, I think, trying to understand what role we play at the Open SUNY level versus the campuses play. And we're going to be looking to that more in the coming year to see if there's anything we can do to support campuses who aren't there yet. We're also working on revisions to the concierge guide, and that's something the community of practice will be doing. The Early Alerts Project, this is actually one of the sub-projects of the Student Success Community of Practice, and that has been active now for a couple of years. We have 26 campuses today that are at some stage of implementation with Starfish's Early Alert product, and we literally, a couple of weeks ago, just launched the application for a 3rd cohort through the Performance Improvement Funding Project. One of the interesting things about Starfish is that it is can be a really helpful tool in supporting other student success initiatives like the Guided Pathways or Developmental English or Math Pathways. So we're really encouraging campuses who are implementing Starfish to look at what those intersections are and how Starfish can help them. Then the last thing in the student supports area is the online readiness assessment. So we did implement a new contract with Smarter Measure, who provides that tool. It is in place for the next 2 years. We also have a parallel project to work on developing a SUNY online readiness assessment that would be an openly licensed tool available to all campuses for no cost. I think some of you know we have limitations with the current tool we're using from Smarter Measure due to the licensing structure and the cost. So that's something we'll be working on throughout this contract. And if anybody is interested, Michelle Fort is the person who's leading that, and you can contact her. I'm going to skip over Open SUNY faculty supports and just say that Alexandra Pickett, who is leading that area, is now Director of Online Teaching, and we'll be able to talk about that. Okay, that's it for me on Open SUNY.
Okay. Any quick questions for Kim?
I'm just going to look in the chat because I see there's been chats popping up here.
I don't think anything was directly about it other than a request for some links, and I think they were posted.
Oh, great. Thank you. Thank you, Lisa.
Okay, now I don't see Alex online, but we're also out of time, and we've lost a couple people because they're heading off to one of the other webinars that's starting right now. So does anyone have any questions about anything? We'll try to get some slides from Alex and post them. We'll post them in the group. Any questions from any of the people presenting? Okay, well, thank you all for attending, and I hope we'll see you all at CIT.